So welcome to Oktaves Podcast.
Thank you so much.
And I never know how to start. Last time I just started with questions right away. So it's like now it's like, okay, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And you drove all the way today.
Yes, I drove all the way from the north of Iceland, Sauðárkrókur, where I'm from. It normally takes me 3 hours, but obviously it's November in Iceland, and I kind of forgot how November in Iceland gets. So yeah, it was a 4-hour journey, and then obviously the traffic in Reykjavik and everything. So yeah, I arrived 7 minutes after 5 when we were supposed to meet. So that was at least we made it.
Yes, you didn't drive just for this, right?
I drove here for an interview or I guess a meeting I have tomorrow. Yeah. Which is an online meeting, I just realized. So kind of I just drove for this, but it's fine. I actually ended up getting another interview tomorrow, so it kind of all came together.
Oh, nice. Okay, we're honored to have you here.
Good to be here.
And yes, so tell us your name, your artist name, and
so my name is Atli, so Atli, which is just my given name. I am a musician from Sauðárkrókur, as I mentioned. Been a musician most of my life in one way or another. I mean, back when I was a kid, I would just sing. You know, that was my whole thing. I would just sing wherever I was, and some people thought it was extremely annoying. Some people thought it was endearing. So I kind of rode that wave for a long time. I started properly. I'll say properly, but I started kind of really getting into music in 2019. So, like I said, I'm from this small town up north, and there's not a big music culture. There's a big culture for, covers and kind of old Icelandic music, big men's choirs, that's the sort of music culture we have. And then, of course, the bar scene. And when I say bar scene, I mean the 2 bars we have that are right next to each other. But occasionally you'd have like troubadours come in, and they'd have their guitar, and they'd be singing, playing for 3 hours and into the night. And I thought that was fascinating. I thought that was so cool. And I was like, man, I can do this. I can get on stage. I can sing for people. I can sing my favorite songs. I can be the life of the party. That sounds so much fun. So I actually just bought myself a guitar and an amp, and I started doing that for a year, probably almost. I was doing that in Sauðárkrókur. I did a few things here in Reykjavik. But yeah, that was kind of how I got into music. And it wasn't until 2020 I started writing my own material. And I was doing that, and that was, those were my first songs, and they were what they were. But I had a friend who was doing music as well. He was a producer, and he was living in Denmark at the time. And we've been friends since we were 10 years old. And we kind of I drove him to the airport. He played me some of his instrumentals. I showed him some of my songs, and we were like, should we work together? And that's kind of how that started. Yeah. Nice.
You talked about being from the north.
Yes.
And you never lived in Reykjavik?
I lived in Reykjavik when I was born in Reykjavik. And I lived here until I was 8 years old. Then I moved up north. I lived here for about a year when I did. I studied business at the University of Iceland for 1 semester, and then I stopped doing that to actually do music. So kind of on and off lived in Reykjavik, but mostly I'm from the north. Yeah.
Cool. And now you live in England. Tell me about that journey.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy. So, like I mentioned, my producer, he was living in Denmark when we started working together, and I actually moved there for a couple of months in 2020. That was during COVID, so that was a whole thing. But I had to move back to Iceland because of some laws and regulations regarding COVID. And while I moved back, he got accepted into the Royal College of Music in London, and my whole thing was like, I'm gonna be a musician, I do what I have to do. And if that means following my producer where he is, if he has plans and I have no plans, like of course I just follow him. So I actually tried to get into London and try to move there. Brexit happens, like dead on as I'm trying to get there. And all the regulations change. I'm not allowed to go to the UK anymore just to move. So I had to get some way. I had to find a way. And that way for me was university. So I did my bachelor's degree in London. And I moved there 2021. And I finished my degree this May. And I'm in the process of moving back home now. But I've spent, the last 3 years just living in London and all the things that entails.
Oh, that's really awesome. So when we first met,
yes,
you were talking about sync licensing.
Yes.
And I was researching a little bit about your music, and I discovered that you just have your song on one of the NBC's shows called Found. Tell me about that journey. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so that's a crazy thing that happened for us this summer, actually. I mean, this song is called Gone Halo. It came out on my birthday, 28th of October, 2021. So it came out 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, actually. And it was released with a label, a small label in Germany called Two Keys Records. And they kind of work with independent artists. They're independent. They're kind of independent themselves. They have a decent sized YouTube community. And they were, just getting started when we released the song, and we've kind of been working with them ever since. And they've been growing, and we've been growing, and it's kind of been a really nice journey for all of us together. But in that journey, along the way, they started looking into sync, and they were working with Ingrooves, which is a distributor who apparently had a sync kind of department. And they were looking into other syncs, and that was a couple of years ago. Nothing really came out of it. We had one conversation with Teen Moms, the TV program. They were thinking about one of our songs. Nothing came of that. And then all of a sudden, super randomly, Ingrooves is bought by Universal. So Virgin Records buys Ingrooves, and somehow through that purchase, our song lands on the desk at a sync or music supervisor from Virgin Records. And apparently what I learned recently is that the director of the show was a fan of the project. So she actually kind of pushed for that song to be put in the show. And we got an email, must have been May or June this year. They were like, hey, we want this song. And we were like, yeah, you can have it. And then we heard nothing more for about 3 or 4 months until just, the 2 weeks before it was supposed to air. They were like, yep, it's coming out. And we're like, oh, thank God. So, that came out on Thursday. And, it's such an incredible experience, really surreal, to be honest. I mean, you have people from America messaging me. They're texting us about, they're watching NBC live and my voice is there. And it's just, you have these actors that are famous and they're just, crying their eyes out with my song in the background, and I'm just sitting there at home, It's absolutely phenomenal. It's been kind of crazy. Super lucky, of course, but super grateful for that opportunity, and hopefully we can build on top of that. Sure.
Yeah, that's a bizarre story, I would say.
A classic industry, I guess, sort of like, if anyone tells you how anything happened for them, it's always just the most ridiculous sort of thing, and it just makes no sense. But I guess it's part of the game, I guess.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So have you celebrated?
Kind of. So last week, of course, as you know, Iceland Airwaves was happening, and Friday, the day after it came out, I did celebrate with a few of my friends.
Yeah. A
little bit too much, maybe, but we definitely celebrated. Yes.
Tell me about that song in particular. Like, how did you create it? What was your inspiration?
So, I wrote it. So it's from my first album, Epilogue of Something Beautiful, which came out last year, in June last year. And that whole album is kind of it's a project that I wrote in the summer of 2020. I'd recently gotten out of a breakup, or out of a relationship, and I was kind of figuring out how to cope with that. And I was kind of just, it was COVID as well, so I was kind of isolated. I was very, I was alone a lot of the time, and I think this song and every song from that album kind of has that overarching theme. But it's funny with this song in particular, and I tell my friend this all the time, because me and him, we were playing Fortnite a lot in 2020, which I think a lot of people can relate to during lockdown. We were playing a lot of Fortnite. And I just remember I wrote this song after like a 12-hour Fortnite session with my friend.
Wow.
And I was living at home back up north, and I had this like studio set up in my garage. So it was just, I had this, on my computer, I had a little studio there. And I remember just this one night we were playing, it was like, must have been like 3 a.m. And we say goodbye to each other, and we turn off the computer. And I remember just sitting in the room alone, like it was dark outside, it was August or something, it was dark outside already. And I felt so like distant from everyone. And it was such a weird feeling. And I remember it so well. And that's when I started writing the song. And it was such a weird time. Like, it was such a weird time. And I think a lot of music came from that same sort of feeling I think a lot of people had. But yeah, that song, I don't necessarily remember all of the songs, how they were created off the album, but this one in particular, I really remember how it was. And that's basically the story.
Now that I hear your story, it kind of fits with, the drama that is portrayed in the show.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And I think that's definitely, I feel like that song definitely portrays what I wanted to portray, and the message that I wanted to deliver, I feel like was delivered in that song. And I think that's why it resonates with some people. And that's why, the music supervisor listened to it and was, realized she connected with it in the same way that I connected with it, which I think is the basis for any kind of music success, I guess.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm always curious is, has anything hinder your progress in the music industry in general? Because everybody's starting somewhere, and there's always, obstacles and all that. Have you ever encountered anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it was the fact that I'm from the north of Iceland, I guess, and that I'm from a town of 3,000 people. And of course, Iceland does have a music scene, which I kind of discovered last week at Iceland Airwaves. But in the north, it's very, very difficult to be heard. And I think that was a big thing that I had to overcome and realize early on, was that I'm not my plans. I've got I want to become a successful musician. I want to become I want to sing in English. I want to I want to tour the world. That's what I want to do. And if I want to do that, there's no way I can do that up north. So I had to move to Reykjavik. I had to move to Denmark. I had to move to London. And that was always my biggest obstacle, was just location, I guess. I think I've always had that mentality of, I'll just do whatever I have to do. Like, what's the most radical decision I can make at any given moment that puts me on the right path. And that was always just moving country and trying to be where, my producer is, or where, where my listeners are, or whatever it is. But also just, I think, knowledge. I think I really wish that Iceland and my school, especially in my high school and anywhere I went, I really wish I could have had more education on what exactly the music business is. What is a master? What is a composition? What is everything? And I think I was, even though it was a struggle for me, I was really lucky because my producer was doing his bachelor's degree in music production. So he obviously knew everything, and I could latch onto him for knowledge. But people don't have that in general. And it's such a shame. You have so many talented musicians that just don't know how to write a song or what even a song is, you know, and it's a shame because I think a lot of people, if they just knew, they could go so much further than they actually do.
That's true. That's true. I wish that the educational system would embrace, you know, the industry better. There's always like this, yeah, it's art, you know.
Yeah.
It'll find its way somehow.
Exactly.
And yeah.
No, and it does though. It's true. I mean, there have been some actually really successful musicians from my town very recently as well. I mean, and it's funny. I was talking to some people about this. Out of the 50 people that graduated 10th grade with me, 5 of us have released music. That's a 10%. Like that's a crazy number.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and you know, and they're working like at high levels as well. Some of them are doing really, really cool stuff. So that's actually really interesting to see.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. And are they still in the north or have they moved?
I think every single one of them has moved from the
north. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so talking about moving, you're also moving to the States,
yes.
Right? Tell me about that.
So, of course, as I mentioned, I graduated my bachelor's degree this May, and living in London, that's you know, it was good for the time being, but I was definitely getting kind of tired of it. I'm from Iceland, and I feel good when I'm in Iceland, and London is definitely a big big change. So I was kind of I had to figure out where to go and what to do, and I've always loved music education, and I've always wanted to have a good music education on my back, and I thought to myself, again, what's the most radical decision I can make to put me on that path? And that was apply to go to Berkeley, which was and is the best university in the world for this type of stuff. So I applied, and I went through a really long process of applying, many stages. They actually once sent me a rejection letter. Like wow. In the early stages, they sent me a rejection letter, and I was like, "Oh no, I didn't get in." And then like a couple of hours later, they sent me an email like, "Congratulations on passing through the next stage." And I was like, "Wait, what?" So am I in or am I out? And I sent them an email. Turns out I was in.
Oh wow!
So I had to. That was a whole roller coaster. But yeah. So next September, going to the States, going to New York, if I can afford it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. But yeah, that's hopefully going to be really exciting. So studying songwriting and production. Which would be really beneficial for me, of course, as a songwriter and soon to be producer. Let's say soon to be producer.
Nice.
But yeah, hopefully that's all gonna go well. And it's only 1 year, but of course, you know, we will have to see if I can stay. You never know. I don't think it's very easy in the States right now as a foreigner to stay, but. We'll figure that out as we go. Yeah.
Well, at least you're going to New York.
True. Yes. So. Blue State. Yes.
At least. But yeah. Well, what is next for Atli?
So at the moment, we're trying as much as we can to kind of build upon this sync license that we got. So we've got a song coming out on the 29th of November. And honestly, I can really honestly say it's my favorite song I've ever written. I've probably said it a few times before as I release a track, but this time I'm like, yeah, this is the one. This is the one. This is like, yeah, I won't say too much, but yeah, I really like this one. I'm really proud of this one, and I'm really excited to release it. 29th of November for that one. We did a music video. As well, I did a music video with a friend of mine. He studied music directing. Yeah, he did a degree in that, and he came to Iceland last June. So this June, we did a couple of music videos. One is already out, but it's age restricted, and we can't. Yeah, so that was kind of a bummer. But this one shouldn't be age restricted. We'll see though. But that one's coming out alongside the song. So I'm really excited about that one. I'm going to try to push that as much as I can. And then my second album is coming out in January.
Oh, nice.
Yes, I'm really excited for that one. That's kind of, it's a compilation of some of the songs that I've already released this year. It was supposed to come out November, but there was a whole thing and it didn't. But I guess in many ways that's a blessing. You know, I think, you know, if it would have come out in November before this sync license, some of the songs, like the next song, wouldn't have gotten the spotlight it's getting now, because of its proximity to the series, TV series.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm actually in hindsight looking back, I'm quite happy with the change of plans that we've been through. But I think that's just that's so typical of what we've kind of been through, and I've been through since I started releasing music. It's so many times, like you can make plans, and you'll be like, yeah, this is the one, this is going to be the one that gets us there, and then that doesn't work, and then you'll have a complete you're just saving your ass, you're just making up something as you go, and that works, and that you know, for some reason that strategy got your song on a playlist, or it got your song on a TikTok something, and I think that's just it's so funny how you can think and ponder all you like, but at the end of the day you never really know what's going to work and what isn't.
That's true. That's true. Tell me about your music. What is Atli's music like?
I was asked this question last week, and my answer to this question, it changes a lot. But I was very happy with the way I answered it last week. So I said it's a mix between Bon Iver and Ed Sheeran. I think, yeah. So them two kind of meeting in the middle somewhere. That's what I aim to achieve, at least. It's very soulful, very intimate, very fragile. I love what Bon Iver and Novo More, if you know Novo More, what they do with their falsettos and their sort of super fragile, manly voices. I fell in love with that many years ago, and that's kind of what I want to do more of. But I also love Ed Sheeran. I love pop. I'm a sucker for a good pop song. So I try to incorporate that as much as I can, and try to find a middle ground where I can kind of stay true to myself, but also, you know, use what I've learned in my bachelor's of songwriting, you know, and how to create like good songs. So I try to find some middle ground. But yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess.
And what is your strategy when it comes to promoting your music?
That's a great question. I mean, of course, TikTok. I mean, it's one of those things where you can kind of, you can do it yourself. And I think that's the beauty of TikTok, even though I'm not the biggest fan of TikTok. I mean, I have seen people coming into the project from TikTok. And we try to put a little bit of a focus on that. Of course, Instagram, and there's this wonderful thing called Submit Hub, which that's also a big part of our release strategy, and has been from day one. And we've built, actually, now we've just got connections with these people. So for those that don't know what Submit Hub is, it's a platform where you can submit your songs to people's playlists, to people's blogs, to people's YouTube channels. So it's music curators that accept these submissions, and then if they like it, they'll place you on these playlists. And that can, you know, we try to go the mathematical route. So the best way for your song to kind of gain traction and get a lot of streams is a lot of streams at the beginning, or like an abnormal amount of streams at the beginning of the track. So the first week, first 2 weeks, that's what you want to aim for. So getting these early placements on playlists from Submit Hub is super beneficial to us. And getting people to pre-save from TikTok or Instagram, that's super beneficial. And once the Spotify algorithm sees that, oh, there's actually traction on this track, they will then push it onto Discover Weekly or daily mixes or Release Radar, and that brings in more traction, and it's kind of a snowball effect. And we try to play to the algorithm in that sense. But what I really love is live shows. That's my what I dream to be able to do at some point, is just live shows around every single release. And that's been quite hard in the past. We haven't had the budget, we haven't had the connections to do so. But hopefully in the future, that's definitely going to be, some more just in-person ways of advertising. I think that's hopefully what the future holds for me.
Awesome. All right, then this concludes our podcast. And I thank you so much for taking such a long trip.
I mean, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. I haven't had the chance to do many of these podcast interviews. I think this is my second one ever. So cool. It's been a great experience, and I'm so grateful for you having me. Thank you so much.